No, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to go to work and I'm not going to wear a mask.
Chinese football, we just lost against Iraq.
It cost us over $700 per month, the lowest medical insurance for the three of us. Hello, my name is David Jacobson. I'm a history teacher here at Huaor Collegiate, Kunshan. And today I'm going to be having a conversation with my students about the differences in cultures between the United States and China. The first thing I have on my list is the gun culture. The Second Amendment of the Constitution has been interpreted to mean that every individual in the United States has a right to own guns. Gun culture in the United States is embedded in the very identity of what it is to be an American. And you see gun violence so prevalent in the United States because people have guns so much.
Well, like the thing we don't really understand is like, because people in Russia, they also can own guns. But then why are there more rights in America than in Russia?
I would be surprised if in Russia it was as easy to own a gun or anyone could just go own a gun.
This is a thing that I think most of people don't understand. We don't even really understand. We spend a lot of money in Chinese soccer. It's not getting good scores out of these leagues. Like Chinese football, we just lost against Iraq. We've been lost against Iraq and Syria. And these Middle Eastern countries who doesn't really have the money, would anyone understand this?
Anytime, no matter how much money you pour into a situation, what the facilities are like and what the equipment is like, the will of the players to succeed and how far they push themselves really comes down to whether the team is going to be successful or not. In fact, sometimes it's the places that are more impoverished, the places that have less, that actually succeed more because the people, it's their only way out. Even Michael Jordan in basketball is a good analogy and they had nothing to do but play on a grass court in their backyard with like a broken rim. And he just pushed himself. The next thing would be, I think that a lot of people around the world don't understand about the United States is that it's a very, very large country with lots of different cultures and different subcultures. From north to south, east to west, and everywhere in between, people are very different, not only in their religious outlooks and their political outlooks and their economic outlooks, but in their ethnicities, in the languages they speak.
Well, teachers have taught me is like the basic ideology people look at Americans are black and whites.
Yeah. The United States, is considered a melting pot because of its size and its large cities. Is a melting pot.
So in China, we have this special type of therapy. When a doctor, he comes to you and then he tells you to lie down on a bed and then he starts cracking your bones. You know that?
Yeah, like a chiropractor.
Now the thing is like a lot of people are now going to them and then receiving the fake ones.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, every time you have something that actually works, you're going to find people who are trying to make money off it by doing it in a fake way. I've been to a chiropractor myself, and I was surprised and thought it was a little bit crazy how much he was able to pop my bones back into place, and I felt like a different person leaving it. I felt like I was 2 inches taller and like walking in a different way. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand about the United States, the idea of this rugged individualism. People from the United States have an idea that they are the center of the universe. During the COVID pandemic we're going through right now. Individuals feel like any collective action that is going to try to keep other people safe is an infringement on their rights as an individual. So you can't tell me I need to wear a mask to stop the spread of COVID because you're telling me I can't do something and that's infringing on my rights. No, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to go to work and I'm not going to wear a mask because that's my right. Whereas in most other places that I've been to in the world, people just assume that it's the right thing to do because you're helping everyone else.
From my perspective, it might be just the basis of communism and centralism. The saying is like people should be all equal. We shouldn't have hierarchies and stuff like that. But then in the United States, it's like everyone has its own power.
I mean, it depending on the scenario, rugged individualism can be a huge benefit to the person who's actually able to achieve something, right? But when you have things that are for the common good, then you run into real problems. There was a philosopher that talked about how if you say you have an empty space and you say, this is available to everyone, somebody will go in there and say, okay, well, I'm going to occupy this space. and in fact I'll occupy all this space, and then thereby taking away the ability for other people to occupy that space too. And then pretty soon someone will come in and say, oh, they're taking up that space, well, I'm going to take up this space. Pretty soon all the space is taken up by a few individuals because they're unwilling to share with everybody else, and they've seen that everybody else is taking their spot. Eventually, the public space becomes a totally private space.
Like recently and before, we have this weird law not accepting people underage to go into games, and they restrict their time. So I'm restricted too. I don't get it. We can only play on Sundays and Saturdays at 8 to 9, only 1 hour, and you wouldn't be able to charge any money. And even though your parents allow you, you can't use your own account to charge money. And there are restrictions of games. It's like if you're underage and then you sign in to it, you can't play it, even though the parents actually allow you, or there's a guardian beside you playing with you. This is why I don't really understand. I think you wouldn't understand it too.
Well, I actually do understand it. Parents understand. And I think actually I, as an American, understand too, because we have seen the results of kids just playing video games whenever they want to and unrestricted and whatever. Just like my son, when he signs into the Xbox, for instance, he's played games, and it's my fault to a certain extent too, but he has access to play games that are above his maturity level. As a parent, I restrict my son's ability to play games. In fact, we have a rule in our household that he can't have technology during the week. So, because we have also seen as parents, we've directly observed his behavior changes, his attention changes in school and all that stuff based on how many video games he plays. So I think the key difference would be that I would say that job lies to me, is basically saying it's up to them. Just saying, hey, we've seen what other countries have gone through and the pitfalls of allowing this kind of thing. And actually, I don't disagree with it, because what you end up seeing is just like the cigarette industry went through in the United States decades ago. Yeah, I mean, e-cigs is a perfect example too. They start seeing the fact that younger and younger kids are smoking cigarettes, so they started coming up with Joe Camel, like a friendly camel who's smoking a cigarette, and they make it look like a bubblegum pack, or they make it look less harmful than it is. You see that the target demographic are now like early teenagers, because they're the ones who have disposable income, their parents' income, they don't have anything major to be spending. You have in-app purchases for video games. I don't ever do that, but I know lots of people who spend a good amount of money on video game purchases, but it's not money well spent, because you're not getting anything back from it. You're getting the temporary enjoyment of passing a level or whatever you need, but that's real money being spent on a digital something that is not benefiting you in any real way. From the government standpoint, they're saying it's detrimental to you.
My Canadian life and American holidays, I've seen these parks that have this public basketball
courts outside.
And skateboard courts area. Now, the situation in China is that a lot of these things are not public anymore. It's held by the neighborhood, and then you have to pay to go in. And even though the government's like passing laws down to ensure children have how many hours, how many times of exercise per day, it's still not working, because people are getting income by locking up gates.
If they're locking it up like that, I would imagine that it's privately owned. But I can see your point in that it would be confusing as to why they would shut down certain areas, especially when other voices are saying we need to exercise more, and then this voice is saying, well, you need to pay for that privilege, kind of thing.
The more frustrating thing is like you get people that didn't pay, and then they go in. There are public ones, there are big ones in like big parks, but then they don't pay. Like they go in, they take the area, and then they do something else.
Like they do dancing on the basketball courts.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
They take up area, and then they would be aggressive to people.
Then the only real thing you can do to that is be more aggressive towards them to take over the basketball court again. But then we're talking about conflicts that arise and fist fights and police get called or whatever happens, which is unnecessary. About the United States is the healthcare system.
A lot of television shows and a lot of advertisements, they say that it's really expensive for medical care in foreign countries, in the Western countries.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is like when we were back in the United States and I was still a student and my wife was working for a school district as a teacher, it cost us over $700 per month to have the lowest medical insurance for the three of us. And then you have what's called a deductible. It's money you have to pay out every time you go until you reach a certain amount of money, and then your insurance starts paying. $700 a month plus $2,500 when you initially go, and it's not revolving, so every year it resets, and you have to pay another $2,500, and every next year another $2,500.
That's gonna be a cash machine for insurance.
Yeah, that's why it's such a big problem, because the insurance companies have no incentive to make the prices reasonable for anybody.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way, the main reason for people going bankrupt in the United States is because of medical emergencies. If you get sick, you get cancer, and you're in the hospital for a month, your bill is going to be in the millions of dollars.
The same in China. It's like you can't get sick. If you get sick, you got cancer. No, not cancer. Even if you get a fever, you can't come to work then. And then someone will replace you very fast, like in 1 day or 2 days, because there's too many people that have the same capability to you.
Right.
Now, we call it like 内卷. One example would be, one of the kids, he goes to a class outside of school, and then your mom or dad will just bring you to that class so you won't feel apart from each other. You'll be in the same level. If you fall down, and then you can't go back, someone's gonna go back because there's too much people that's higher than you.
Sure.
And they get paid same as you. And that's a big problem.
Yeah, and this is something that I am not experiencing as an immigrant to China because
you're a foreign teacher.
right, and so far China has been very kind to foreign teachers, so we get very good insurance and very good pay relative to the average person, I think.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.